So my name is Terry Smith. I work for Koppers Performance Chemicals. We're a manufacturer of timber preservative chemicals, and I'm the technical manager for the New Zealand business unit. But Koppers is multinational. It's based in Pittsburgh in the US. So tonight, briefly, I just want to talk about the preservative treatment that KLC use in their Generation 2 products, which is MicroPro. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about some of the treatment options for claddings and some of the changes that have driven the changes to preservative acceptance. Then come back to the MicroPro, the technology and the benefits of that, and finally the approvals and certification. So MicroPro, what is it? It's a waterborne preservative treatment. It's copper-based. It's intended to preserve the wood against decay and fungal attack. It's been developed as an alternative to CCA or tannalized treatment, you might know it as, which has been in the New Zealand market for probably 60 odd years. So this has been developed as an alternative that doesn't contain the chrome and the arsenic that's in CCA. MicroPro, it's approved for all applications in New Zealand for the hazard classes H3.2 to H5. And because of the way it's formulated, it offers a number of environmental benefits in addition to its performance as a wood preservative. So in the standard NZS 3602, claddings are required to have a 15-year durability. So you've got some options in there of what you might use. You could use a naturally durable species. You could use radiata pine, which on its own is not very durable, but you can add some treatment to that. And at the H3.1 level, it needs to be used with a coating. And if you take it to an H3.2 level, then it doesn't need to be coated. Within the next standard down for us, the treatment standard, this is not something that architectural designers necessarily need to know about, but this is where you find what treatments are available to be used within those different hazard classes. So within the H3.1 classification, there's two options. There's boron, which is also used for framing, but used at a higher level and in conjunction with a paint coating, gives good performance as a weatherboard. And then there's the LOSP, that's the light organic solvent preservative treatments, with the azole active ingredients there with a paint coating. If you go to H3.2, that's required to have a 50-year service life under the standards, and so there's four options in there. They're all copper-based. There's the CCA, or copper chrome arsenic, which we've been using for a long time, copper azole and copper quaternary, which are two of the newer products that haven't been around quite so long. And then there's copper naphthenate, which is another LOSP option, another solvent-based treatment, which is approved, but it's actually not currently commercially used. So the two things to look at there in terms of the CCA alternatives are the copper azole and the copper quaternary. And there's two approved versions in the standard. There's the solubilized version of the copper azole and copper quat, which are the older versions. And then there's the micronized version, and that's the one that I'm talking about tonight, which is the MicroPro. Around the world, there's been some changes to the acceptance of timber preservatives, particularly around the use of chrome and arsenic in preservatives. So in the United States in 2003, there was a voluntary transition away from the use of CCA for residential applications. Same sort of thing happened in Australia in 2004, where there were some restrictions placed on CCA, which took it out of areas where people would be in intimate contact with it, particularly decks and handrails, playgrounds and picnic tables. In the European Union, a thing called the Biocidal Products Directive was introduced, and that basically said you've got to reapply for approval for all of your products that you wish to sell to the public, and no one really had the appetite to stump up the money to try and get an arsenic or chrome-based preservative back into that standard. So CCA has gone out of the European Union as well. Then in New Zealand, we've got the EPA, and the EPA and its predecessor have looked at CCA use in New Zealand a number of times, and have come to the conclusion there's no need for any change. They don't feel there's any risk involved from the use of the product. So that's good for New Zealand, but the rest of the world has changed a wee bit. So we've seen from the 1990s, the writing was on the wall a bit for chrome and arsenic containing preservatives, so alternatives were developed. And these are the alternatives like copper azole, and you might know that as Tantalith E, and copper quaternary, which you might know as ACQ. So they're the first generation alternatives, and they are basically a solubilized copper product. So what I mean by solubilized copper product is the copper metal is dissolved in something so that we can mix that with water, and then we can pump it into the wood. And the use of that solvent, and it's usually an organic solvent like monoethanolamine or ammonia, that creates some properties of the preservative that may not be exactly ideal. So the organic solvent-based preservatives The copper never binds onto the wood as tightly as you might hope, so there's always a little bit of it leaching out, and that leaching can then lead to things like corrosion problems with metal fasteners, and it also gives more issues in terms of painting and staining and potential mould growth. So there were some things there that the preservative worked well, but there were some properties that could be improved. So my parent company in the US, Koppers, looked into some alternatives, so using the same active ingredients that we know work well, but formulating them in a different way that didn't use organic solvents. So this is micronized protection, or micropro. So basically copper particles are very finely ground up so they can be dispersed in water and pumped into wood. So we use a micronizing mill that's also used in the pharmaceutical industry to grind the particles up. So the benefit of that is some changes in formulation performance. The big thing here is metal leaching, so that's how easily the metals can be washed out of the wood when it's in service. If you look at the blue bars on the right hand side, that refers to a solubilized copper system like ACQ at an H3 and an H4 level. That's the two different bars. And you can see there's a reasonably high degree of copper leaching in this standard American Wood Preservers Association test. The green bars in the middle are CCA. CCA we recognise is a very leach resistant product, and it gives very good performance in the field. And the MicroPro, the orange bars on the very left hand side, the leaching rate is actually a little bit less again than CCA. So very good leaching performance because of the change in the way the product is formulated. And that it leads on to some improvements in corrosion performance as well. So again, the blue bars on the right hand side are a solubilized copper like ACQ or tantalum, and those are recognised as being more corrosive to fasteners, and you'll find that in NZS 3604, where they're specifically listed as requiring things like stainless steel fasteners, where for other products like CCA you'd be happy to use hot dipped galvanised. The testing has shown that the micronized products, which are the orange bars there, they're actually slightly less corrosive than CCA, and so hot dip galvanised is perfectly suitable. And just for contrast, the yellow bar is how corrosive untreated wood is, so even untreated wood is a wee bit corrosive. But those three products there on the left hand side, they're all basically low corrosive, and therefore they don't need extra corrosion protection for fasteners. Aluminium was also considered in the States, and so they made up a little series of test houses with all manner of aluminium flashings, downpipes, roofing, anything they could think of to see if it would be corroded by the wood, and it wasn't. So we've also proven that micropro treated wood can be put in direct contact with aluminium, which is actually quite different to some of the other treated wood products. Because the preservative itself is a much lighter colour, you get much lighter coloured wood. And so that's a photo there. It's actually southern yellow pine, but the dark coloured wood around the outside is some ACQ, and the light coloured stuff is micropro. So you can imagine if you try to put a transparent stain onto wood like that, it's a whole lot easier starting with a light coloured product than trying to start with a dark coloured one. The nature of the preservative also means it's less leach resistant, so the preservative is less likely to bleed through any paint coatings. And in the case of micropro, and like the Generation 2 products that KLC make, it's a water-based treatment, so that reduces the risk of resin bleed that you might get in service compared to some of the solvent-based treatments. I mentioned there's some environmental benefits that go along with micropro as well. There's less copper emission out of the wood because it's more tightly bound, and because there's no solvents in the wood, there's a reduction in VOC emissions as well, and the product's actually a lot easier to manufacture, so there's a reduction in greenhouse gas because we're not using solvents that are oil derived. The product has gone through quite a lot of environmental certifications in the US, and I'll just talk briefly about those. Now, we are working our way through the green tag process locally, and we're at 3/4 of the way through there. The first one here to mention is the Scientific Certification Systems life cycle EPP process. That's the environmentally preferable product. So they've looked at the life cycle of the treated wood from the manufacture of the chemical through to the disposal at the end of life, and they've deemed that this is an environmentally preferable product compared to other treated wood products. It's also been assessed by the National Green Building Standards certification program, and it's green certified, so micropro treated wood can be used to accrue green credits. And there's also emissions credit certification there as well. So we've got the Green Guard Children in Schools Indoor Air Quality Standard, and also the Green Guard Underwriters Lab Gold Certificate for low chemical emissions and VOCs. So all good properties that the micropro product brings to wood. In terms of market acceptance, micropro was launched onto the US market in 2006, And our best estimate is it now covers around 80% of the North American market for residential treated wood products. And today there was a press release from my parent company, and they listed 20 billion board feet as actually being treated with MicroPro preservatives since it was launched. And my maths tells me that's 47 million cubic metres, which is a massive amount of wood, but it's a big market. So locally, in terms of market acceptance, we've had the product approved by the EPA, and it's been in NZS 3640. It's a treatment standard since that was reviewed in 2012. And we've had commercial users in New Zealand since then, and of course the product's got very widespread acceptance around the world, very big in North America, as I stated, but widely used in Asia, Australia, and Europe as well. So just to wrap up then, in terms of the benefits of the product, it comes with some very good environmental benefits. The environmentally preferable product. It's a green product according to the certification program. It has the green guard for low VOCs. We've got the green tag in progress, and it's an approved solution within the building code because it fits under 3602 and 3640. We give it a 50-year limited guarantee, as we do with some of our other products as well, but that's somewhat ahead of some of the H3.1 alternatives that you might find. Has better painting and staining qualities, better corrosion protection for fasteners. You can put aluminium in direct contact with it. There's low copper leach in it, and it's a light wood colour. So I've raced through that because I was mindful I only had 15 minutes, so I'd just like to say thank you all for your attention. That there is a lovely photo of a park in Ireland, and that entire boardwalk, which you can see leading down the hill and way off into the distance, it's all treated with MicroPro treated wood. Thanks very much.
Gary?